Okay, welcome to another Highland League Weekly Friday preview show from the Press and Journal. I'm Ryan Crell, got Paul third here. We've got another very exciting card of Highland League action to discuss ahead of the weekend. And it is a very exciting card this weekend, there's no hyperbole there. Our main game is going to be Brora Rangers against Brechin City, a game made all the more interesting, I think, by Wednesday's results. Brora winning 11-0 at Strathspey as Brechin were dropping their first points of the season at home against Huntly.
It's been an interesting midweek, that's for sure. I think when we were recording the Highland League Weekly on Monday, I don't think we would have predicted that. Well, we might have predicted Brora winning at Strathspey, but I think we all expected Brechin to win at home, their first home game in a while. But it now sets us up beautifully for a real tasty tie at the top of the Highland League for Saturday, that's for sure.
As you say, Brechin sitting on 25 points, Buckie Thistle in second on 24, Brora, Brechin's opponents, on Saturday on 22 points. Now, Brechin obviously still unbeaten, still haven't lost a game, but I suppose it's a psychological thing after the midweek, is it? I mean, Brechin have taken a little bit of a knock, still a draw, still got a point out of it, still had the grit to come back from 2-1 down for Jordan Northcote to score the equaliser. But Brora, having won the North Cup last weekend, then going and destroying Strathspey in midweek, there's maybe a bit more positivity around them, or it certainly feels that way, and Brechin have obviously got to make the trip up there. So I mean, it's tantalising stuff. It doesn't get any better, does it?
This is it. This is why we think we've got a good product as well for people to subscribe and watch, because where else do you get to see big games like this? And it is going to be an absolute cracker. Brechin are the team to beat still. 8 wins, 1 draw is the sort of crisis I wish every club, I'm sure, thinks they could be having the same problems that Andy Kirk has. But yeah, Brora seem to have the bit between their teeth, and they now see a very clear opportunity. The road's open for them to win a game and go above the league leaders.
Okay, so normally I'd leave you guessing on what our second game we're filming for Highland League Weekly this weekend is, because it means you might watch until the end of the preview show. But it's relevant to talk about Buckie Thistle against Bank City at this point. Buckie, as we've said, very much in the mix at the top of the table. They'll have one eye possibly on Brora against Brechin this weekend, because a result for Buckie against Bank City could see Buckie go top of the table. Bank City, meanwhile, 2-0 win at home to Devon Vale in midweek, but I don't think they would have been particularly happy with how slow they started and how rusty their attacking play looked at times. Jack Henderson's 2 fine finishes got them over the line in that one. They're still unbeaten at home since coming into the Highland League, so nothing to be scoffed at. But I think they've been looking for a big win in midweek, and then setting this Buckie clash at Victoria Park up as like we're Bank City, and this is our chance to show everyone that we've arrived in the Highland League and we can compete with these teams, because ultimately that's going to be Dee's aim, isn't it?
It is, but ultimately, while Bank City didn't reach the heights that we know they're capable of, they've won a game, kept a clean sheet, picked up the 3 points, and that's what matters. Yeah. We've spoken before off camera about Wednesday night games can be quite interesting in the Highland League. You get a few upsets here and there, and Bank City have avoided that with a comfortable 2-0 win. That should be said. The flip side is Buckie go and win 4-1 against Clark. They now see an opportunity, because yes, there'll be one eye on what's going to be happening at Brora on Saturday, but you know what Graham Stewart's like. He'll have his players fired up saying, look, whatever happens, we need to be ready to take full advantage here and take care of our own business, and that's going to be a tough task in itself. As good as Bank City have been at home, Buckie have been equally as impressive at home. So this is set up to be a cracker. As a second game goes, it's in another day it would be top billing.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the other games that are taking place this weekend. Then we'll start with Devon Vale against Rothes. Vale have just discussed, I think, 4-3 the previous weekend at home against Keith, having been 2-0 down. Craig Stewart wasn't too unhappy with their performance in midweek. I still think with Devon Vale, he's right to say that it's very much about them scoring in key moments. Like if they'd scored, as Bank City were struggling at the start of the game on Wednesday, if Vale had a good chance through Antonio Jam, if they'd scored, you kind of think the game changes, and he talked about that afterwards. It's about not switching off in key moments, scoring when they get the opportunities. Generally, their play is pretty good, and they've got some talented players, chief among them Horace Ormsby, who plays on the left wing. Rothis, midweek, decent draw, conceded 2 more early goals, but I suppose a positive is they're showing the spirit to kind of, despite those early goals, come back and compete in games, and a 2-2 draw for Martin is nothing to be too disappointed about, I wouldn't think.
I don't think so, but the fact that we're at home will probably be what irked Ross Jack a little bit, I would think. Yeah, I mean, Rothis, it's a slow crawl up the table because it has been such a wretched start by the standards that they've shown in recent seasons. But I'm sure it'll come together at some point. The flip side is Devon Vale, as we touched on. They're like a few Highland League teams come into this season. They're a young side with a sprinkling of some older heads in the team. So there is an inconsistency that comes with that. And we've seen that from Devon Vale. But I think they will improve as the season goes on as well. But yeah, this is an opportunity for the Vale, I would think. They've got to be fancying themselves at home after a good home result last weekend.
The way I've put this list together, I mean, I have just copied and pasted the Highland League fixtures off the website, but it's working out quite well because we're now moving on to Formartine, who on Saturday are at home to Forest Mechanics, and they'll be looking to get back on the winning trail. But Forest, 4-2 win against Wick in midweek. They've shown very much that they could be a team that breaks in that top 7. I think they're currently sitting in the top 7, aren't they? Yeah, 7th place. They've shown good early season form. This one to me it's one of those too close to call ones.
I'd agree with that. Forest had a wee wobble a couple of weeks ago, and they just had a couple of poor results, but they've bounced back strongly from that. Yes, I think this is a good opportunity for them, but for Martin, they've had a tough week. They've lost a cup final on penalties, and now they've let a 2-goal lead slip away from home. Now they're going back to North Lodge Park. They'll be looking to bounce back now from that. So yeah, it is set up to be a cracker, but I'm with you. I don't know how that one will go.
Yeah, I suppose a chance for Forest to show that they belong among those clubs. 2 points separating them at the moment. Fraserburgh against Clackcudden. You watch Fraserburgh in midweek. Clack right down near the bottom at the moment, although over the last week they've competed well in the North Cup final against Brora Rangers. Sounded like they competed pretty well in midweek. If you look at how the game went at home to Buckie, it's another one of those like we're talking about with Devon Vale. If they've taken an early chance against Buckie, the game ends 4-1, but it hinges on the key moments where goals could have gone in and they don't go in. For Clack, Fraserburgh will expect to win this one. They probably need to win this one, given the games that are taking place elsewhere. It's a chance for them to pull maybe a bit closer.
It is, and Mark Cowie made no bones about it. We need to get going, was what he was basically saying after their win at Turriff. There's a consistency and a drive that's not quite there that we had last year that took Fraserburgh out of the Highland League title, and he's looking for that from his team at this point. And a home game against Clach, who have just lost 4-1 at home, that's an opportunity for Fraserburgh, and one that the manager will be expecting his side to take. But Clach are a capable team, much the same way as Devon Vale. A young side with a smattering of old heads. Garny Warren springs to mind when I say that, and he will be a key figure, I would think, for them as they make a tough trip to the Bellsleigh.
Yeah, it does feel like Clack's season, fine margins a little bit in places. It could be much higher up the table, I feel. Huntly against Nairn County. Interesting one this. Huntly now unbeaten in 3, including the draw with Brechin, the first team to take points off Brechin this season. 2 goals from Andy Hunter helped them on their way to that. Nairn County, Stephen Mackay's now in charge at Station Park. So close to getting off the dream start. 2-0 up against Locos until late on, but conceded 2 goals. But still seems like there's maybe been a little bit of a, dare I say it, new manager bounce there. Yeah, 2 teams that I'm sure won't want to let any feel-good factor slip away.
Absolutely. I mean, Huntly will be buoyant, have to be buoyant after an excellent result at Glebe Park. But can they now take that on in a game where they're at home, they're going to be expected to win this, I would think, because just given where Nairn are in the league at the minute. But Nairn, under new management, they've been better away from home this season. And, well, they have a bounce. You're right, will they have a bounce under Stephen Mackay? I can't call this one. I put this in the same category as the Formartine Forest game. I think it's a really tough one.
Yeah. Keith against Strathspey. Now, starting with the visitor is what we've just talked about. Clattenacudden above them, what we've just talked about with Nairn, who are just above them. It only adds to that feeling that Strathspey, having been beaten so heavily in midweek, really are at risk again. Cut adrift even more so at the bottom of the table. Keith, meanwhile, the home team, I spoke to Craig Ewan earlier this week, and he was frustrated about how the game panned out away at Devon Vale at the weekend. But I just feel like Keith are one of those teams that if their last two games, they lost 2-0 to Lossiemouth in midweek, but if the Devon Vale game goes their way, a couple of different things go differently. Lossiemouth, quite a tight game, two teams close to each other on the table. If they come out on top of that one, Keith are like right up there. Keith are like potentially behind Locos in the table. What's that, like 9th place or something? But they find themselves much lower down. I suppose they just need to start winning the games against the teams in and around them, and Strathspey certainly seems like an opportunity for them to do that.
It sounds easy when you put it that way. All you need to do is win your games. But yeah, I mean, Keith are so unpredictable. Perhaps the most unpredictable team in the division this season, because on paper you see some very good players there, and you'll look at a game and you'll think, oh, they've got a real chance here today, and then they'll slip up, and then the next week you'll go, well, this could be a tough one for the Maroons, and they go and get a draw or a win. So, yeah, which Keith team are we going to see? I don't know. But Strathspey, they need wins, pure and simple. They're still bottom. Yes, it's a small gap, but the teams above them are starting to show signs of life. We had that draw that Strathspey had a couple of weeks ago, and we thought, can they kick on from here? Well, they haven't really. And this is a game for them. If they have aspirations of not being the bottom club, they have to be looking to get something from.
I think we've previously discussed it, but draws aren't enough. You can't just draw all season long. You know, in fits and starts, you need to win games if you're going to finish above that bottom spot. Turriff United against Lossiemouth. Lossiemouth 4 wins to this point from 10 games. I mean, they'll be happy with that return. Is it 10 games or is it 9 games Lossiemouth have played? 10 games. So, I mean, coming into the season, they've probably snapped your hand off for that. Turriff, similarly, they're sitting very much in the middle of the table, lost in midweek, but, you know, they've been good enough that Aaron Reid's signing for Aberdeen in January. That's the sort of talent Turriff have got in their ranks throughout their squad as well. But again, I'm not really sure if I'd like to predict the way this one would go. Maybe Turriff edging it for me.
Possibly. It's funny, I mean, Turriff have had a really tough week. If you think 7-1 up at Buckie and then 4-1 against Fraserburgh. But as Dean Donaldson said to me after the game against Fraserburgh on Wednesday, it wasn't a 7-1 on Saturday. We played a lot better than that scoreline reflects. And having watched them against the Broch, they had periods where they were on top and they were asking a lot of questions, the Fraserburgh's backline. On another day, they could have had 2 or 3. I mean, Mark Cowie himself said it could have been 8-4 at half-time, the chances the two teams had. Turriff are capable, and Lossiemouth will need to play well when they go there, I think. Yeah.
Final game to discuss, Wick Academy against Inverurie Local Works. It's a home game for Wick, and their home form, I think it's safe to say, has varied of late. I think they got beat 8-0 by Banks of Dee in the league, and then the week after it would have been 5-1 against Lochee. They won in the Scottish Cup. They lost, as we've discussed, against Forest 4-2 in midweek, and they face a Locos side that are in kind of a difficult place, I would say, at the moment. It feels like Locos are in need of a win. They've dropped points recently, I think, against Strathspey, Nairn, and I think they lost to Brechin in there as well.
Yeah, it was 1-0.
Yeah. So
It's got draw written all over it for me.
Yeah,
when you set it up like
Yeah.
that and you explain the recent results that they've had, yeah, I think
it's a difficult place to go for locals as well, is it, when they're, you know, in a moment where they need a win.
yeah, they're in a
long
funk.
trip.
I think that's what you would call it. They're in a funk where they can't seem to find that consistency. Much like Wick, two teams that on paper should be doing better, I think, than where they are in the league, and both you can make a case for both of them to win this game, but equally you can make the same case for them both to slip up. That's why I'm going for a draw here.
One of them will run away with it now, guaranteed. Okay, so as I've said, an exciting weekend of Brechin Highland League action ahead. Potentially a change at the top of the table, depending what happens. On Monday, you can watch highlights with us at 7 p.m. on the Press and Journal website of Brora Rangers against Brechin City, our main game. There will also be a reaction from that, as well as the highlights of Buckie Thistle against Brechin City. Another tasty clash, but we'll see you then.